to, well, the world's people are hungry, and we need to produce more food to feed them all. This argument might sound convincing, however, it is untrue. We actually produce more food already than we can ever actually eat. The real problem is that we end up wasting so much of it. In this speech, I want to explore the links between food scarcity and food waste, why we should address this issue immediately, and how we should address the food waste problem. To begin with, the links between food scarcity, and food waste. According to a report published by the USDA, between 30 and 40% of all the food grown in the US is lost in central landfills. In both developing and developed countries, food waste occurs in all the stages of the food supply, including food producers, distributors, and consumers. However, the specific causes differ between those two regions. In the developed countries, the main culprits tend to be consumer waste and supermarket and restaurant surpluses. The main problem in wealthy nations is that food is relatively cheap and abundant, according to Godfrey et al. In the 2010 paper, this simply leads to consumers feeling little incentive to avoid being wasteful. The same paper stated that exceptionally high consumer standards leads to food retailers throwing out food that is safe and edible, despite having perhaps some blemishes. In developing countries, they face very different problems. They have the inability to protect their grains from pests, and they lack access to reliable refrigeration infrastructure to keep food from spoiling. For example, in India, more than 1/3 of fresh produce is lost and it spoils because grocery stores and retailers don't have access to reliable sources of refrigeration, according to Nelman in 2009. In a world where food is scarce, we simply cannot afford to continue letting so much of it go to waste. The USDA estimates that over $160 billion worth of food is lost in the US every year. This should be completely unacceptable when there are also over 35 million Americans living in food insecure households, according to Coleman Jensen et al. In 2020. If we wasted less food, there would be more available for those who need it, and we wouldn't have to turn ever more wilderness into farms to feed the growing population. Food production is carbon intensive, energy inefficient, and ecologically destructive as a process. Reducing waste to it will be essential to minimizing humanity's negative impact on the environment. And the next point, why we should address that issue, ties into this. In a resolution adopted in the UN in 2015, the reduction of food waste was named as one of the 17 primary goals in their 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The global population is growing rapidly, and so is our demand for food. It will be incredibly challenging to try to meet these needs sustainably in the future. By 2050, the Earth will be home to 10 billion people, according to the World Resources Institute. And this means we'll need to find a way to feed over 2 billion more than we already do today. The challenge will be to try to do that without exploiting more land and while meeting future sustainability and emissions goals. Climate change also threatens to disrupt our food supply and will lead to massive food insecurity. In the year 2050, we may lose as much as 25% of our usable cropland due to the effects of global climate change, making those fields unproductive, as discovered in Nelman's report. Our already strained food supply will become even less capable of fulfilling our needs in the future. Therefore, to preserve access to a stable food supply, we must begin to implement solutions to eliminate sources of waste and inefficiency. For my next point, how we should address the food waste problem. While the solutions needed to reduce food waste in the developed world are based around shifting social and cultural practices, lower income countries can benefit from investing in technologies and infrastructure. Individual, legislative, and technological efforts will all be necessary in this effort. Individuals in the developed world, like us, can start making an impact today by changing our spending habits, to be more aware about how we're causing waste, and to try to eliminate wherever it's possible. Some legislation will also be helpful. For example, we can simplify and standardize the labeling expiration dates so consumers can avoid throwing away food that has not gone bad yet. We could also require supermarkets to donate surplus food to charity rather than discard it. In 2016, France was the first country in the world to pass a law doing exactly that. Stores there are required to donate still edible food, getting close to its expiration date, to charities to feed the poor, rather than just throwing it away. According to an article by PBS, this has led to over 46,000 tons of food being rescued from the trash each year. Technology will also be helpful to us. International organizations can invest in infrastructure and technology to help the less developed countries solve their food waste problems. For example, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded donations to dozens of low-income countries with specially designed storage bags to keep bugs out of crops and keep them from spoiling and infesting them. As you can see, there are a number of viable and realistic solutions we can begin implementing today to address and resolve the food waste problem. And we must begin doing exactly that. In conclusion, I hope that now you can see that food waste is a major cause of food scarcity around the world, and it's a problem that will continue to worsen over the coming decades. Therefore, we must address it now, and we have a number of tools which we can use to do so. Because we all deserve to live in a world where everyone can be fed and no one goes hungry. And we can begin working towards that goal, that lofty aspiration, today, by reducing our food waste. Thank you.